Hey. I was thinking, so I wanted to come on here and share my thoughts with you. Thanksgiving is coming up, and I'm so ready. I am going to eat some of everything. I'm looking forward to family and fellowship and friends. Yeah. But I was thinking about when I was a kid and when the holiday season would come, we would draw turkeys. We would take our hands, do you remember this, and outline and make part of the turkey, and then we would color it, bring it home, hang it up on the refrigerator. We learned about the first Thanksgiving when the Pilgrims and the Indians sat down and ate together. And I said Indians on purpose because that is what they were called. I asked someone recently who is a Native American, like, what should we call you? Because there's Indigenous people, Native American, and American Indian. And basically he said any of them are fine, but they reserve American Indian for within their communities. And so out of respect, I will not use American Indian. But when I think about, the history that we know when it comes to the Native American, it just baffles me how genocide took place and the United States has not even acknowledged it. Many were slaughtered. The ones who remained, they were forced to assimilate. They had to give up their language, their communities, their land, their clothing, their traditional clothing, which identified who they were. A couple of weeks ago, I went to a program at Case Western Reserve University. It was in honor of Native American Month, which is November. And the professor talked about Indigenous people in the academy. And he was saying how schools were developed, and we're talking about college level schools, but they were developed to educate the English kids who came over, as well as the Native American youth. And they wanted to impart their knowledge into them and their godliness. That's what the people who came and stole this land wanted to do to the Native Americans. Harvard was one. Dartmouth was another. They were designed to convert the Indigenous people so that they can become Christians. They assimilated them so that they dressed as the English did, in American style clothes, as we call it now, and not in their traditional clothing. And that stripped the community, as I said, because that was part of who they were. They forced them to speak English, as I talked about. They took their native tongue. They converted them to Christianity, forcing them to surrender whatever their beliefs were and the things that they acknowledge with the cosmos and all of that. And then also they forced them to live in places that were the worst of the worst, the places that did not grow anything. Now, when I think about the Native American, the story is similar to that of what African Americans' ancestors dealt with. When the Africans were brought over here, same thing. They lost their language. They lost their community. They lost their identity. And they had to assimilate as well. And so it just, when I was listening to this story, I'm like, it's such a parallel, except in the beginning, they tried to kill all the Native Americans, versus with us, they continue to make us have babies so that they could keep them in slavery. One of the sayings that they said was, kill the Indian, save the man. So basically strip the Native American of everything that he knew and make him what the English people were. They didn't want them to become scholars. No, that's not what they were doing. They wanted them to become laborers. They wanted them to do the crops. I mean, Same story as we know. And it just amazes me because as we're dealing with banned books that don't want to talk about slavery, we definitely are not talking about what was done to Native Americans. I remember when I was a kid, I thought that I was Native American, or at least had some in me, right? I was part of the Cherokee tribe. Now, where that came from, I don't know, but it was in our family. Like, that's why I didn't just pick Cherokee. Somebody told me. And so it wasn't until I did my DNA that I realized that I really did not have Cherokee in me. Neither did my grandmother, who we really thought had a lot of Native American in her. But, you know, I just think about how they tried to humanize the Native Americans. They wanted them to be inferior beings, right? So not even recognizing them for being human as the others are. They wanted to disregard their knowledge system, the way that they worked, because education was here before the English people came over. It was here. And they also desecrated their human remains. This one blew me away because they talked about how a lot of Native Americans, their bodies, their skulls, their bones were dug up and used for research purposes. And still to this day, some people use them for research purposes. They dug them up, took the body, their human remains. They took whatever was buried with them, their, what is it called? Their funerary objects. They took that with them too. And even to this day, there are people who are using some human remains to teach. Some years ago, maybe 50 years ago, 70, I can't remember the date, but the United States had put a law in place that all human remains from Native Americans have to be returned back to their tribe. Sounds good, right? But the problem is most of these bodies, they don't even know who they are or who they belong to. So again, people are still using their human remains for whatever they're using them for. As we know, Blacks are at the bottom of the totem pole for the most part, but Native Americans were right there with us too. And it wasn't until the civil rights movement that they actually was able to benefit. Like what was done here to our Native Americans, the fact that the US still has not acknowledged the genocide that took place, it's remarkable. I read somewhere, or the guy had talked about how during the Civil War, so we're in the middle of a war, and Lincoln decides he wants to steal North Dakota and South Dakota from the Native Americans. And so there's a whole nother war going on during the Civil War. And this is where a large mass killing of Native Americans happened. I think it was called the Dakota War or something. You can look that up if you're interested. I also found out, we all know about the Mayo Clinic, but Dr. William Mayo, who was the founder of the clinic, he used the Native bodies that I talked about, that he stole, and he used it to educate medical doctors. This is no different than what they did with the Tuskegee experiment, what they did with Henrietta Lacks, when they just do what they want to do without regards to the fact that these are human beings. I think the guy said that there were 200,000 bodies, corpses, that were unearthed in the name of academia. 200,000. Mm-hmm. You know, when he was talking, the professor was Native American. I believe he was from the Miami tribe, somewhere down in Florida. But when he was talking, I felt everything he said in my soul on a cellular level, because the similarities are right there with what Africans went through and Native Americans. The difference is that they didn't kill the Africans, they just stole them and then made them work. With the Native American, they just stole their land. And if they decided not to kill them because they realized, we can use these people as laborers too, then they just made them assimilate. And if they did not assimilate, then they got beaten. So it's a lot of similarities. And I remember someone asking the question, because the professor talked about how the US has never acknowledged the genocide of Native American people to this day. They have not acknowledged all that were slaughtered, the land that was stolen. And yes, they do have some land now, but they gave them the worst of the worst, the kind that didn't grow anything. But someone asked the question because of what's going on in the world now. They asked about the similarities, the parallel to what's happening in Israel and Palestine. It's remarkable. So I'm coming here today. I know you probably thought this was a traditional Thanksgiving message. I just figured I'll use this opportunity to educate a little bit, but also because it frustrates me when I think about this. Now, this happened a long time ago, even though we know systemic racism still exists, and it does not benefit me as an African American or the indigenous people who are here. Everything is against us. Fortunately, we are resilient and we can fight against it. But it made me think about where we are now. And I'm thankful we aren't in that time, right? I think about the hatefulness that those people had to have in their hearts to treat people as they did. But I do recognize that there is still some hatefulness that happens today. I actually saw something on social media or CNN maybe, where this guy was harassed because he was Palestinian. Just because of the color of your skin, because of your race, your ethnicity, your nationality. You are treated less than just because. And as frustrating as that is, and when I try to figure out what can we do, the only thing I can come up with is love. That's all I can do is love people. To open hearts, to try to get them to love back. Because fear is not working. Fear is not working. And those are really the only two emotions, love and fear. And of course, I'm coming from a place from love, a place of love, I should say. But I was thinking about this because I have a friend and we were having a conversation. And when we were conversing, I said, we look at things differently. And this is what I appreciate about the world because it's what makes it beautiful. But we look at things differently because when I look at people, I look for the good. That's what I see. But he, on the other hand, when he looks at people, he sees the bad. That's what he's looking for. But I'm going to keep continuing, I should say. I'm going to continue to look for the good. I'm going to continue to lead with love. Because that's the only thing that can beat this thing that we're dealing with. And I ask you to join me this holiday weekend. We got 4 days for those who have time off. No, you know what? For the holiday season, because we typically be pretty good during the holiday. People are happy. So lead with love. Lead with love. Be kind to one another. Yeah. Alrighty. Happy Thanksgiving. Have a wonderful day. What are you doing? Are you cooking? I am cooking. I'm making, I'm preparing my dressing today. I'm going to just mix it all together and let it sit overnight. so that all the seasonings can marinate, and then I'll cook it tomorrow. I'm going to do some spinach dip that I'm taking to a dinner. I'm making this sweet potato cornbread, but it has a glaze on it. So I don't know if it's cornbread or dessert, but we'll see. I'm going to tape that tomorrow as well. I saw a recipe on TikTok to make potato salad. Now, I make potato salad and I like my potato salad, but this one, I'm going to just see what happens. Now, it's for me. So if it doesn't come out good, it's okay. I know better than to try something new for Thanksgiving. But I just want to see what it's going to taste like. It's definitely different than anything that I've done. It has carrots in it. I'm just going to see. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing today. I'll get some stuff out of the way and then the rest I'll finish up tomorrow. But let me know what you're doing. Are you cooking? Are you staying home? Are you visiting friends? Are you traveling? Let me know. All righty. Take care. Bye-bye.